Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special, spooky edition of The Ecologist. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some scary Irish stories because, as I'm sure most of you watching this will have carved your pumpkins, or if you're more traditionally minded, your turnips. And many of you probably do not know that Halloween derives its origins from the Celtic festival of Samhain. So come with me as we take a very brief look at some of the most famous Irish folklore stories that Ireland has to offer. Many years ago, there was a blacksmith whose name was Jack, and he was a ferocious drunk, and he was mean, and he was thick. And Jack didn't have many friends, whether he was sober or whether he was after his daily dosage of alcohol. But Jack wasn't just mean, he wasn't just friendless, but he had a way about him. He loved to play practical jokes on people, did Jack. Well, before too long, Jack's antics had reached around the countryside, and it even reached so far as to reach the devil himself. And the devil he was a bit of a practical joker himself, and he kind of wanted to have a chat with Jack, so he did. So he came along, and one evening he knocked on Jack's door and he wanted to have a chat with him. Now, Jack wasn't fazed in the slightest. He offered to take the devil out drinking because, that's all Jack did. He didn't have any friends, and he finally kind of saw this as an opportunity to go for a few drinks with someone and to have a proper chat, unlike the locals who stayed away from him, mainly because he was mean and he played practical jokes on them. And after the night, Jack had ran up this enormous bill. And after Jack had run up this enormous bill, the devil had declared that the night was over and it was time for him to go, and that Jack had to pay the bill. But Jack was a rather crafty fellow, and he offered to pay his bar tab with his own soul, which of course the devil readily agreed, and the devil turned himself into a coin and he gave it to Jack to pay the bill. But instead of paying the bill, Jack slipped the coin into his pocket along with a silver crucifix and slipped out the back window. But the devil was caught between a rock and a hard place. He could see Jack and he had his soul almost within his hands, but the silver crucifix prevented him from doing anything. So he just retreated back down into his hole. The devil was absolutely beside himself with rage as to what Jack had done, and he decided to come back the very next night and demand Jack's soul from him. Jack, once again, was not fazed by this, and he readily agreed. He said, of course you can have my soul, no problem. But if I could just have just a taste of one apple from the highest tree beside his house, he would give the soul to the devil, no problem. So the devil, wanting to have this over and done with, agreed, and he said, fine, I'll go up and I'll get this apple for you. So quick as a flash, Jack ran around and he carved crosses into every side of this apple tree, leaving the devil trapped up the tree. Jack offered the devil a way out. He said, you can come down from the tree, I will just cross out these crosses and you'll be able to come down again if you give me my life back, give me my soul and let me live out my days. So the devil had no choice. He didn't want to be struck up the apple tree, so he agreed. Jack could see out the rest of his days. So Jack got to continue living on, drinking and being mean and playing practical jokes on the people of his town. And when Jack finally died, he went to the gates of heaven and was refused. He was refused to be let in because of how mean he was and because of how cruel he was to people when he was drunk. So Jack had no choice. He had to walk down the windy path to hell, where he met the devil once more. And the devil just laughed at him. He said, you can't come in here. Hell isn't even a place for you, you mean-spirited fellow. So not only did he laugh at him, but he also threw an ember from the fires of hell at Jack. And so the ember lodged within Jack's skull, and now his phantom walks around the earth with the embers of hell in his eyes as he mournfully tries to find a taste of an apple or a drink of beer or just someone to talk to. But now he can't, because he's just a ghost. And every night Jack thinks of if I was just a bit nicer to people, then maybe I wouldn't be where I was now. And that is the story of Stinky Jack and his lantern. There is a much better and longer version of this story on Bearded Badger's YouTube channel, which will be linked down in the description. And if you like that tale, I would recommend you checking it out, because he is a far better storyteller than I am, and it's also a lot longer. And I really love that tale. It's something really precious and something to make you think about being a better person, I think. And next we have the tale of a ghostly pact. Once upon a time in Tyrone, there was these two children, a boy and a girl. Their parents had died when they were very, very young, and they had missed their parents so much. But they were taken in by a guardian who was an stout atheist and was determined to impress his beliefs on the kids. But they would have none of it. So they made a pact as children that the first one of them to die would come back from the afterlife as a ghost to prove to the other that the afterlife did exist and that their parents live on. Well, the two children eventually grew up, and the son became the Lord of Tyrone, and the daughter became Lady Bresford, two people of pretty well nobility within Tyrone. But one Christmas morning, Lady Bresford woke up to find her sibling, her brother, standing beside her. He said, "Sister, I've just died, and I've come to remind you of our pact we made as children. The afterlife does exist, and I'm here to tell you your future." Her brother went on to tell her about all sorts of things. He told her that her husband would die, and that she would find love again and remarry, and this time have 4 children, and that they would be happy and very and that they'd be very happy children, and she would live a pretty happy life herself. But unfortunately, she would die at the age of 47. Of course, she was very frightened, and she also suspected that she might still be dreaming, and she didn't quite believe that her brother had died. So he asked her to prove himself, to prove that he spoke the truth. So her brother reached out a spectral hand and clasped it around her hand. Her hand instantly went black and withered. And when she woke up the following morning, it was still black and still withered. So she had to wear a glove every day since then to cover up her hand. And then she knew she would die at the age of 47, after losing her husband and finding a new love and a new husband and giving birth to 4 beautiful children. But soon after, she would die. Over the next few years, her brother was proven right. Her husband did die, she found love again, and she remarried. She had 4 beautiful children who never gave her any pain or any hassle in her life, and she absolutely loved them to bits. And so came her 47th birthday, and she didn't die. She carried on. She spent the whole year living in fear that, she was going to die this year. She just knew it. So she had all her plans made out, and she was convinced she was going to die at any moment. And this kind of sent her a bit doolally, shall we say. So when it finally came to her 48th birthday, she decided she was going to throw the biggest party Tyrone has ever seen. So she organised the whole house to be done up. She organised for all her friends and family to come, and they threw the biggest party that has ever been had in Tyrone. And at this party, a priest who had known the family for many, many years came over to her and asked, "Do you know your age, my dear?" And she said, "Of course, I'm 48 today." And he said, "I'm sorry, "You're not 48." And she says, "Oh my God, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, my dear, I had a look through your adoption papers, and it turns out there was a little mistake. It turns out this is actually your 47th birthday." And of course, he was expecting her to be absolutely thrilled with the news that she wasn't as old as she had thought she was. But instead, she replies, "Oh, that is most troubling. Do you know what this means? This means I will probably die tonight." And the priest looks at her all confused and not really sure what she means. And he asks, how do you know what, you don't want to do anything silly?" And she just says, it's fate. You know yourself, Father. It's fate. Tonight is the last night on earth. And with that, she said goodbye to all her friends and family at the end of the night, and the party was over. And she went upstairs, and she'd been preparing for this night for a year, but now that she knew the night was coming, it was a bit different. She went to bed every night for the past year thinking she was going to die, but now she'd finally gotten over that fear, and here it was. Here was her last night on earth. So she went into bed, and she closed her eyes, and she would never open them again on earth. But she did go up into heaven, and she met her brother once more, and she met her husband and her parents. And that is the end. And so that brings us to the end of our video, where we've talked about some very short Irish folklore stories. And just like I mentioned with the Stinky Jack and his lantern, there are a lot longer versions of these stories told by better storytellers than me. And Bearded Badger is an incredible storyteller, and there are definitely other ones on Irish YouTube and Irish TikTok that I don't know about. But if you like this, you should definitely check them out, because even though I like making these videos, my knowledge isn't exactly there yet. I am getting better, and I'm doing more research, because I really like making these videos, and especially with the cryptid stories and the scary stories, and even Darky Kelly. I don't know, there's just something about it that I just really enjoy telling people about. But for now, it's goodbye from me, and it's also goodbye from this sexy little fella. So happy Halloween, and we'll catch you all next time.